I just have to circle back and emphasize what you said about fear is not a stop sign, it's a guide, right?
Yeah.
I think that is so brilliant because it's true is so many times when the fear comes up, we think, oh, I'm not supposed to do it.
Right.
Let me pull back. I should go in a different direction. But that means you're also staying within your comfort zone. And I think it's important because sometimes we as women can be perfectionists and have to control things. Not me. Yeah, that is totally me, right? And I know that I've grown when I let go of control and I really get quiet with myself. And like you said, just listen and watch for the signs. And as uncomfortable as it is, because I used to be a former New Yorker, I'm uncomfortable with the quiet. I'm used to like that, the get going and do it. And, you always have to be in motion. But it's important to get quiet so that you can hear and see the next sign or, like you said, the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're the only one who's going to know that.
Welcome, everybody, to the Life is Now, Do It While You Can show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a life coach for women over 50. And today we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited, Suzy Rosenstein, and she's a master certified life coach and midlife mentor. And today we're talking about how to overcome your fears when you're beginning a new chapter. And that new chapter could be anything from retirement, moving, or empty nest, or anything, right? So before we jump in, Suzy, I would love for you to share your story and how you became a midlife coach.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thanks so much for having me on. So my story started with, I think, my stuck story. My stuck story was from 45 to 50. So I'm going to be 62 this week. And between 42 to 50 was pretty gruesome for me. And I use gruesome, for effect. I was unhappy and I was definitely stuck for 5 years. And I was at a long-term job and there was nothing wrong with the job. I was just there too long, but it was just I was starting to realize that I couldn't stop thinking that there was more for me out there and that I just wasn't content anymore. So I started to think about it and just whine about it to all my friends, and especially the friends that I thought were smarter than I was and knew what I needed more than I did myself. So all that was going on. And at the same time that that was going on, I was doing a big needlepoint project, needlepoint. And it took me to a needlepoint store kind of frequently. And one
Mhm.
time when I went, I don't know if you've been in one of those, but they're so beautiful. They're so colorful. There's canvases on the walls and all the threads are so bright. And I was caught. I just couldn't help but notice this group of women off to the end of the room. They were standing up around a high table and they were focused on something, like leaning over, like studying something. I think they were doing beading on the needlepoint. I was new to needlepoint, so I wasn't anywhere near beads. But it occurred to me, first of all, I was surprised there was a needlepoint store to begin with. And then I was like, oh my God, when I went back to work that day and got my questions answered and everything, I remember sitting at my desk and just thinking, what the heck am I doing? That woman who owned that store figured out how to be fulfilled doing something she loved. And I bet she didn't think when she was growing up that there was a needlepoint store. And why aren't I an entrepreneur by now? I was 50, I was turning 50 that year. And I'm like, what the heck happened? What the heck happened? And I just started to realize this. And I also started to realize that I was scared to death to become an entrepreneur. Like once that idea popped into my head, I was like, oh my God, now what? It
Right.
felt way too indulgent for me to, give up my dental benefits for the family with kids where I knew were going to need braces when I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So there was no certainty and I had a good job. So this was driving me crazy. So I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to make a list of everything I love to try to sort myself out if I did need to get another job. you know? So I remember making this list and thinking, okay, what are all the things I like? I'm not going to be judgmental. I'm just going to think about what I like. So I liked solar panels and solar energy. I like dogs, maybe dog grooming. I liked, oh, I have a master's in psychology. Maybe I'll look at doing a PhD. Oh, maybe I'll be a guidance counselor. I was like looking at everything. Oh, I love the home decorating shows. I'll look at real estate. I looked at all this stuff. And while I was looking, and thinking and reading job descriptions and talking to people, I realized that what I was really missing was more of a one-on-one, in-depth connection with humans. Like my job, I was more of a project manager. I worked in publishing for in the health industry, and I just missed the one-on-one thing. And I was always attracted to it. In grad school, I was doing qualitative research, ethnographic interviews, and I was in psychology, but applied social psychology. And I was just always really interested in people. I love people. What am I doing? Turning 50, and I'm at this pivot point. So eventually I got laid off. And it was the gift I couldn't give myself, although it was very painful and very not nice when it happened. But I just really started to realize that as painful as it was, as harsh as it actually was the gift I couldn't give myself. And then I met a coach somewhere along the line, and I ended up getting some feedback, some coaching. And I realized that coaches weren't just wannabe psychologists who didn't have the training, but that there was a very different lane. And this coach really pushed me into the coaching lane. Every time I tried to pull her into, my only experience was with a counselor or a therapist over my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. So I'm like, oh, maybe coaching is a possibility, because I had such respect for people who did clinical work and I did not want to be in that lane. But maybe coaching was an appropriate lane for me. And it did seem to make sense with everything I did. So I went down that path, not knowing what I would do, but I got really into it. Once you start coaching yourself and then you learn the skills and you have the opportunity to coach other people, it was exactly what I was looking for. So step by step, that's what happened to me.
Oh my God, I love that story because here you were feeling this pull to become an entrepreneur, but you were still at this job and you felt the jealousy towards someone else who started her own business. But then I feel like when you shared that story, I was like, the universe was listening and it almost gave you a kick in the pants of, you're not going to leave, so we're going to make you leave, right?
100%, Suzanne. And the other thing was, I'd been an entrepreneur off and on since I was
Mm.
12. I did calligraphy. I was doing envelopes for
Oh,
people when I was 12, 13, 14. I even did a sign for a store. And then I had a little jewelry. I was making Fimo jewelry for people. And at one point, I even, with a partner, we made a baby time capsule type of product and even got it into stores. This was before online banking. So things were very different, but I had dabbled and I had an entrepreneurial spirit without understanding what it was I was good at and what I was thinking about and the kinds of things that got me excited.
right. So now I know that the way you described this journey was, this life coach helped you see what you couldn't see and put you on the right path. But I'm sure a lot of fears came up for you. So how did you move through those fears and really dive in headfirst to this is what I'm doing and I'm excited about it?
Well, that was step by step, really, because even when I started to become certified, I didn't really understand that it would lead to being an entrepreneur. I knew it could, but I really didn't know what I would do with it at that point. So I started to learn really early on to just take the next best step. And that's certainly something that I coach my clients on all the time, because we like to think that there's certainty. There is no certainty, even on things we think are certain. Like, look what happened with COVID. We thought it was certain
Yeah.
that there would be public education, and and so many things just went upside down. So once you start to really appreciate that there's no certainty, then the first step is really just to learn to trust your instinct about where you are now and what the next step might be, or at least would be enjoyable, or that it would be what I like to call a new data point, a new experience for you to interpret. But the other thing that started to happen as I was kind of getting myself sorted, I started to practice coaching and I started to meet midlife women. And by then I was 50, 51, and I was, experiencing all that stuff myself. And I started to appreciate that there was a very negative pattern going on with the midlife gals, that they are just so hard on themselves, so hard on themselves, seeing the glass as half empty rather than half full, focusing on what they can't do instead of what they can do. And overall, just really didn't believe that the best was yet to come, or that aging was a gift, even though we all have the magnets and the pillows on our couches and beds and things like that. And it really drove me crazy. And I started to think, why is this driving me so nuts? What's going on that it's like so deeply, it's just so important to me to help them see past this. And I realized why. And it's my why. And my why is that I grew up watching 4 grandparents, 4, grieve the deaths of their adult children, my mother and father, who were 31, 32, and 41 when they passed. So I was only 5 and 12. And so this was my whole life, that I was watching these grandparents in that situation, which is very unusual. I didn't appreciate how unusual it was at that point. But the thing is, so I was 5 when my mother passed and 12 when my father passed, and they didn't have the gift of aging. My parents did not have the gift. They didn't have the privilege to age. So to be in this world now where I'm meeting and talking, in depth, coaching so many amazing midlife women, and they just take it for granted that, they're alive and that life is not as great as it could be. and and not really understanding what it means to waste valuable time, and what it means to really appreciate that not everybody has the gift of aging. Not everybody has that privilege. So I started to see how my upbringing and my past and my experience was really motivating me to help in this regard, to put a spotlight on helping people live like time matters, because it does. We waste so much time. Just think about social media and our phones, and now at least we get reminders of how much screen time. But just that one little slice, there are so many ways that we waste so much time. And at our age, it matters. I mean, it matters all the time, but it really matters because we have such time sensitivity, the passage of time, wasting time, things being too late. So that's what really helped me. It propelled me, even though I had all my fears too. What if I look stupid? What if I make mistakes? What if I can't make any money? Well, but I just had to keep remembering and do my own coaching, that I have an important message to share, and that my personal experience really does help people think a little bit differently about the decisions they're making, about how they're spending their time and what their priorities are. So that really helped me. And I was scared.
And that's okay, right? It's okay to
Exactly.
be scared and do it anyways, because it's
Exactly.
normal. It's totally normal. And I think also, I don't know if you find this to be true, but like, I think about myself when I was in my 20s. I was fearless. Nothing scared me. I'm going to go do this and that. And now that I'm older, it's not that I'm completely fearless, because I'm not. Fears come up for me, but I notice they make me take that pause a little bit more often than they did when I was younger. So that being said, Suzy, I love everything that you shared about the time sensitivity, because I personally didn't think about the time I had left until I had my wake up call, which was I was diagnosed with cancer. And believe it or not, I look at it as a gift. Not that I was diagnosed with cancer, but that it woke me up and said, you know what, you got to start living your life. And so I moved through my fears a little bit faster. But that being said, not everybody gets that wake up call of time, right?
Yeah.
So, my question for you is how can a woman in midlife, as she's moving through these big life changes, whether it's retirement, and retirement could be a choice or it could be forced. I have
Yeah.
clients that are going through forced retirement, right? Or she's moving to a new city and starting a new life, or her kids are grown and now she's alone. So how can she enter into that new chapter and move through those fears a little bit quicker than she normally would?
Interesting about quicker. I don't know that quicker is necessary. You know, we have to really
Right.
think about what the rush is. Like, if we're able to appreciate the experience we're having in the moment, it doesn't always have to be rushed through, because
Mhm.
getting there isn't always better than being where you are if there are lessons to be learned. Sometimes we can't skip steps, but it can be painful and you don't want to waste time. So it is kind of it's just important to be aware of what's going on. So I would say the first thing to do is to get really clear on what you're thinking that's creating fear. So it could be anything, but you need to really understand what it is. How are you freaking yourself out? Is it fear of failure, fear of the unknown, feeling judged, being feeling alone, feeling uncomfortable being a beginner again if you're have a change in mind, um, just being afraid of the feeling of accepting uncertainty. Be clear on what it is that's causing fear. Like, one of my big fears was always that I'm going to look stupid, or that I'm going to end up under a bridge with a shopping cart poor.
Hmm.
You know, and I've explained, like, it's very visual because I had a little bit of a rough childhood and it wasn't easy all the time. And there were times where there was a lot of scarcity. So those are my big fears, and they come up very quickly. And when I think back to my life, there were all kinds of points where I could see that fear was definitely calling the shots with my decision making. But I didn't have the awareness of thoughts and feelings and the way they reacted together. So I would say just really get curious and be kind to yourself. Show yourself some compassion while you're being curious. And the best way to do that is to just ask yourself why. Why am I worried about this? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? And then when you get that answer, write it down and then ask yourself why again. And you might have to ask yourself why 3, 4, or 5 times, just to really play with it and be curious about what is going on for you in that moment. Then the other thing is that this idea about certainty, which we spoke about briefly, but to really think, are you expecting things to be certain? Are you expecting a roadmap to happiness that's all tied up in a little Tiffany blue bow? Thank you very much. Right? Is that what you're thinking? That you just want like a plan that you guaranteed it's going to work? And if that's it, you need to be a little curious about that. Because if you ask anybody who's made a successful transition, any entrepreneur who's been successful, anybody who's got more experience in life, they're going to tell you that the road wasn't straight, and what I learned along the way really helped me. It really helped me learn more about myself, figure out what I want, and get even a better path, one that made even more sense to me. So what if that was the case? What if not being certain was the perfect thing for you right now? Because you needed to slow down, you needed to ask yourself more questions. Another thing is that so many of us are just so busy and so focused on being productive and rushing through everything that we miss our own internal messages. Some people call it intuition, it might be a whisper or a hint, but we miss these insights into what it is we actually want because we can't hear them. We're not listening, we're not looking. So, to catch that kind of stuff, you have to really be aware of trying to find it because it's there. And there's one very simple, obvious kind of exercise that I love because it gets to it cuts through. It's like a hack. So I'm going to ask the question and I want you to think of the first thing that comes to your mind without judgment. It's about what your next step should be or what you really want if you won $2 million in the lottery. So right away, something comes to your mind. It might not be clear. It might just be an image. It might be a feeling of what you're looking for. For me, it's always something like turtle tagging in Costa Rica. There's this image of being outside with a breeze, wildlife, the ocean. So I don't know what that is exactly, but there's something to it. And that always comes up for me. So I think we owe it to ourselves to explore that. And maybe that's not it exactly, but maybe I need more wildlife. Maybe I need more time on the ocean. Maybe I need a longer vacation. Maybe I want to allow myself to study turtles in Costa Rica. Like, I don't know what it is, but there could be something there that is pulling me and that will help me. And once I learn to trust that, I have less fear because I'm
Mm,
excited. It's inside me. It's like, so learning to trust yourself and think about fear as a guide rather than a stop sign is, I think, is so important. Like, what if fear has something to share with you? What if you can learn from fear? What if fear is guiding you a little bit? Because sometimes you feel fearful and you like your reasons. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't think this is safe. Or I got stuck in Costa Rica, by the way, on a zip line. I had to get rescued over 600 feet up. It was so scary. I was dangling in the wind. My eyes were closed. The guy comes out and rescues me. He's like, "You don't look happy." I'm like, "I'm not happy." And so I don't want to go on a zip line again. And that's okay. I like my reasons. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. I'm fine with that. But there are all kinds of other things that I don't want fear to be calling the shots. So, understanding how you think about fear, how you think about certainty, what it is that you are really, really afraid of, and asking yourself if you really want to grow. Is this the time in your life that you want growth? So, if you want growth, that means you have to try new things. And if
Yeah.
you
And
try
you
new
have to
things,
get uncomfortable with the
exactly,
fear. Yeah. Oh my God. I love
exactly,
I just have to circle back and emphasize what you said about fear is not a stop sign, it's a guide, right?
yeah,
I think that is so brilliant because it's true is so many times when the fear comes up, we think, "Oh, I'm not supposed to do it.
right.
Let me pull back. I should go in a different direction." But that means you're also staying within your comfort zone. And I think it's important because sometimes we as women can be perfectionists and have to control things. Not me. Yeah, that is totally me, right? And I know that I've grown when I let go of control and I really get quiet with myself. And like you said, just listen and watch for the signs. And as uncomfortable as it is, because I used to be a former New Yorker, I'm uncomfortable with the quiet. I'm used to like that, the get going and do it. And, you always have to be in motion. But it's important to get quiet so that you can hear and see the next sign, or like you said, the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you're the only one who's going to know that. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
how many people care about you and love you and all your smart friends, you're the only one who really knows that sense, that whisper, what you're actually thinking and what you're actually afraid of. And if you're okay with those reasons for being afraid. There's one other thing that I find is very, very common, especially with technology today, is that we're so quick to Google something. If you're going on a trip, you're going to Google it. If you get stuck, I can't figure out my podcast settings. When I sit down to record a podcast and something changes and I'm like, and I Google it, I figure it out. But we just try to get experience from sitting and looking things up. And we need data points. We need to try things. When somebody says, "Do you want to come?" Go. You're going to get much more information by going, talking, engaging than you're going to be from reading about whatever it is you were going to go to. So you got to try the thing. You got to be a beginner. You got to meet with people. You got to have conversations. I have a couple of a few clients actually have heard this over the years is they finally, after doing work together or after taking a break or a pivot where they had a little more flexibility, they finally had conversations with people that lived nearby.
Mhm.
So these are neighbors, right? That they never had time to talk to before. And I've heard this, like I said, several times where they're finally talking to people that have been in their world, but not really, when they allowed themselves to prioritize engaging, that was a worthy way to spend time. And in all of these cases, they were so pleased that they did because they had a chance to get new data, to hear how is this person solving that problem, or what is this person doing, and where are they going on vacation, and whatever. And it's just more information for you to interpret. And that gives you more, just more perspective about how you think and feel and what you want. So allowing yourself to get out there more, talk to more people, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and it's funny when you were talking about wasting time on a phone. Phone our iPhones or whatever we have, they're great, but I also feel like they've disconnected us and they do the opposite of connecting. Because I mean, the prime example is when you go into a restaurant or a coffee shop and you see everyone like this and no one's like communicating, and it
Right.
drives me crazy. But it's so true what you said. The more people you talk to, you're going to get different perspectives. And you may have thought you were going to go on this one path, and talking to somebody else, you may go, oh my God, I need to pivot and do this other thing. But you wouldn't know that unless you expose yourself and meet more people and find out their experiences and what they liked and didn't like. And you may realize that you want to take a different path. But my next question for you, though, is because I believe as a life coach, and I'm sure you believe this too, is mindset is everything. And if you don't have the mindset, it's going to be really difficult. So if a woman is in a place of a negative mindset or a fixed mindset instead of a growth mindset, how can she shift out of that? Well, let me backstep, because it's not first about shifting out of it. Can you share why it's so important to have a growth mindset and really focus on the positive mindset as you're going on this new journey in a big life change?
I think the first question is what I referenced a couple minutes ago is like, do you want to be a woman who grows, or do you want to be a woman who's stagnant? And just at a high level, just think about it. Like in that job that I started to feel so stuck in, I started to feel very stagnant. I hadn't been on any conferences or anything in years. Those budgets got slashed like such a long time ago. And I just didn't feel like, after you've been around a long time, you're kind of at the top of your area of expertise, right? I'm not saying you're brilliant and there's no more potential to grow, but if you're in an organization that doesn't have a lot of those opportunities, I just wasn't feeling like I was really growing, and it was bugging me because I felt bored and I felt stagnant. So if you're sensing that you want more, what does that mean to you? Because it doesn't mean the same. So if you do want to grow forward, you're going to have to be open to what's possible. Like, and if you're not willing to not everybody wants to change, and that's okay. But if that's what you want, you have to be very clear about that. And if your mindset doesn't line up with that, you have to be curious and it's all about curiosity and compassion, right? Like when you're asking yourself these questions, or if you're working with a coach, or doing self-coaching, you have to really ask yourself, what do I want? How am I getting in my own way? Do I want to move forward? You can still figure out the pace that you want to move forward. You don't have to push yourself in a way that is way out of your comfort zone, but you're going to have to do a little bit of work in that direction, or you won't have the result that you want. Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah, and if a woman feels like she's just alone on this journey, because a lot of us do feel
Yeah.
alone on this journey. Like I don't have children, but I know a lot of my clients that have children, and their children have moved out and they have their own lives. They're adults. And they may be single. And so they're feeling more alone on this journey because, um, of their friends have scattered, they've lost touch with them. So what is your suggestion for a woman that's feeling very alone and isolated on this new journey?
Okay, so there's two things. First, there's some self-coaching type of work to do, and I just wrote it down so I wouldn't forget the other thing. So so I feel comfortable talking about the first thing now. And I would introduce this concept of a bridge thought, because a lot of times if you're alone, you may not be challenging the way you're thinking the way that you want to. So sometimes understanding exactly what the prompt is, a journal type prompt to help you, is just really useful. So it could be, like I said before, why am I thinking this? Do I like my reasons for thinking this? What am I making this mean? Just those kinds of simple questions to explore your typical excuses, which are your thoughts. And then you can also ask yourself, well, do I really believe the best is yet to come? Why or why not? That's a big one, because most people say they believe it, but they really don't. They think it's a downhill slide to the finish line. And aging is complex. There are lots of thoughts and feelings about aging. But like I said, in my mind, we've been aging the minute we were born, and it's a gift. So, what are we going to do with that gift? So, clearly, if you don't have the results that you want, there's something about the way you're thinking that's getting in your way and keeping you stuck. So, even if you start on a path guided by some new improved thoughts that help you lean in that direction and maybe create confidence or motivation, even if you make a mistake, is it okay? Can you pivot? Because you're already moved from where you are now, which is a good thing. That's growth. You're not the same because you made a decision and you moved a little bit in that direction. Maybe you went out with your friend, maybe you took a vacation, maybe you went on a group trip with people that you didn't know, maybe you pivoted in your job, maybe you started a new hobby. There's all kinds of things you could do. Maybe you joined a pickleball club. Everybody's doing that and having a blast. So there's all kinds of things you could do. And then one of the ways that you can help yourself in that direction is this thing called a bridge thought. It's like a baby thought to move you a little bit forward with a belief that you don't quite yet believe, but it helps you.
Mm.
So it could be, I don't, the best isn't yet to come. Well, that thought's not going to help. And maybe you don't really believe the best is yet to come. But could you be learning that there are some things that are very positive that are yet to come? Or could you be open to the idea that the best is yet to come? Like just a little bit, a baby step in that direction to get you moving a little bit in that direction. And that's huge. It's such a big deal. And another question is, well, what if I'm wrong that this is super hard? We just believe that, oh my gosh, it's super hard. I can't do that alone. But what
Mhm.
if you're wrong? Maybe you can, or maybe you can learn to be a woman who tries new things, and sometimes you're alone. But if you want to grow, is that okay? So that's the first thing, is just to be really curious about those thoughts. Ask yourself why, challenge yourself with baby step thoughts to move you a little bit forward. But the other thing is what you can do to get with more people. So if you do feel alone, and as an entrepreneur, this is something we deal with all the time, and we get pretty comfortable about getting into communities with like-minded people. So
Yeah.
sometimes we pay for those communities and sometimes we don't. Personally, I'm in a bunch of those communities, both kinds. You might want to work with a coach. You might want to go to a meetup. You might just want to join a club. There are so many things you can do. You could take a workshop and learn how to do something you've been wanting to do, like write or paint or play pickleball. If you want to do something, you can find out how to do it. So, I mean, there's so many opportunities when you're looking. If you're open to doing something alone, you have to get there, you have to join, you have to start alone, and then you won't be alone. But if you want more people in your life, you need to create opportunities to meet more people. So one of the things I do when I'm in these groups, I I'm on the lookout for people who make me laugh or always have a comment that I seem to agree with or find interesting. So I make a little note and I reach out and I have a coffee date, either online or in person. And I challenge myself for each new group I'm in to connect with at least one person. And that really helps. And that's way better.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a networking group and you're like, oh, I have to talk to 30 people. In my world, I want to make one meaningful connection and have one great conversation, and I'm satisfied.
Yeah, you and I are exactly the same. I always challenge myself, just one person, just one, not 10, one, because then you're not overwhelmed, right?
Exactly.
And it's so important for us to make connection when we're feeling alone or lonely, and not sit on our couch and watch TV. Is get yourself out there. It's so,
Yeah.
so important. And if anything, we should all learn from this, because what we went through, 5 years ago, of being so isolated and forced into isolation, it's like, this is your opportunity to get out there and connect. And it can be more than one group. Like for me, I have several groups that I belong to, whether it's the business coaching group that I belong to, or a financial group that I belong to. It's just connecting with like-minded people that you really have something in common with, and you won't feel so alone in going through on this journey. So I love everything that you shared, Suzy. Thank you so much. How can women find you?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to listen to the podcast. So I have a podcast called Women in the Middle, Loving Life After 50. And I would say if you're looking to make a change, I have a freebie for you, something that you can grab. It's a 12 signs, 12 obvious signs that you're ready for a change. And I know that you'll put the link in the show notes.